Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Beyond Influence. I'm Kwame, I'm here with my co-host Scott, and today we are joined by a very knowledgeable marketer, someone who has been a marketing leader at three of the most advanced, the greatest marketing companies and social media companies in society today. So we have a wealth of knowledge with us. We are very excited about that. Welcome to the show, Sara Pollack.
Thank you. It's Pollack, just so you know.
Oh, I knew I should have asked. I should have asked some questions before I hit the record button.
I'm used to it. My whole life. Don't worry.
Oh man. Well, welcome to the show, Sara. Sara, how's your week been?
It has been busy. We have just launched our annual Pinterest Predicts program, and this was our biggest ever. And the team has been working tirelessly for months on end. So this has been a very big week. It's been a really fun, exciting week. I'm also very excited for the weekend.
So Kwame and I were talking about, it was super exciting to have you on. I think, you mentioned your roles at kind of some of these different companies over time. And I think you have such a unique perspective into the lens of social and the way that each of these different companies is approaching social and engaging with creators and brands. And really excited to hear some of the Pinterest predictions. I did a little piece on our TikTok on my 2025 predictions, so I'll see if we line up there. But no, Pinterest is going huge in the creator game, working with tons of brands. So I would love to hear kind of what's top of mind. What's something that you're spending a lot of time on right now? I think everyone wonders, like, from the social media networks, what are you guys spending your time on? What are you thinking about? And how can brands and creators kind of jump in on the action?
Yeah. Well, we are gearing up, obviously, for 2025. I mean, we've hardly said goodbye to 2024 yet. I think to your initial point, we've done a lot more with brands in particular over the past couple of years that I've been at the company. And a lot of that was sort of got off the ground this year, whether it was partnerships we did with Urban Outfitters around back to school, or Anthropology around weddings and holiday decor. Showing up at Coachella was a first for us with a bunch of influencers in tow. So I think, it's definitely been a time where I think, given our real growth with Gen Z, who is obviously a huge part of our audience, we've definitely taken a cue from them, I think, in terms of how we show up in the real world more and more, and sort of feeding off of their energy for the creators they love, the brands they love, and just trying to show up in ways that really delight and excite people and get them, excited about Pinterest.
That's awesome. I think we're diving into what the team is handling. Before we get too deep, do you mind telling us, what your role is specifically and what that means for your day to day?
Sure, absolutely. So I lead consumer marketing for Pinterest. So basically, all the communication and engagement that we have with our pinners and with prospective pinners, really trying to grow usage of the platform globally and to build on the brand love that we have. You mentioned social media, Scott, and interestingly, I think Pinterest is actually kind of unique. A lot of people don't necessarily view us as social media, but more as a platform that is really personal to you. And it's a place where people come to really figure out what they're into, to get ideas for themselves. And a lot of the tools that we invest in as a platform are around sort of curation and refinement and saying, here's like an idea of what I'm into, but like, what am I really loving about this and what's right for me? And so it is that sort of personal kind of space for people to explore, who they want to be, what they love, et cetera. And so I think because of that, we have some really strong brand equity with consumers. They really appreciate the role that we play in their lives. And, we're very grateful for that and feel really privileged to be in that position. And so part of my job and my team's job is to protect that brand position and to hopefully, continue to help more and more people see us that way and use us accordingly.
I love that. And it's funny because a lot of times we talk about the algorithm or, each user's experience in a lot of different applications. And I will say, my Pinterest is probably the best representation of the things that I love and I enjoy. And it's funny because I go and I look at the recommendations for me and my boards, and I'm just like, yep, I love all of that. And it's amazing how that kind of curated experience does kind of manifest this interesting, like very personal representation of who you are. And Kwame and I talk about this a lot, like being a multifaceted person, whether you're a creator, a consumer, someone who interacts with the platform, we are uniquely different. We have very different needs. On mine, I have everything from music to home ideas to cars to planning my wedding 10 years ago. There's this really interesting, multifaceted relationship. One thing I wonder, and especially for Pinterest, is how do you keep that core of what Pinterest is and was, and now start to add in these different features or attract these different types of users without kind of losing that identity and that core and what makes Pinterest magical for pinners?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, over the last couple of years, we've introduced a lot more shopping to the platform, right? It used to be that it was really challenging. People would see something they loved, but trying to actually buy it was very difficult. And so, I think in the last couple of years, we've done a lot to make everything on Pinterest shoppable. But to your point, we also want to remain a place for inspiration. And so I think the team works very hard across the company, all teams, to sort of find that right balance between inspiration and actionability, right? It used to be people would complain that Pinterest wasn't actionable enough, that maybe it felt like a place for dreaming, and we want it to be a place for dreaming and doing. But it needs to run that full gamut. And I think like we are very unique in that we kind of are the only place where, you can come in with sort of a fuzzy idea of what you want. So you're looking for some kind of inspiration. And sometimes that will take you down a path of just finding new things that inspire you, saving them, collecting them for the future. And sometimes that's actually like, no, I really want to buy this thing. And so, we want to make sure that that path is available to you too. But I do think it is a balance, and it's a constant refinement that I think we're working really hard to make sure we get just right for users, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so getting to this point, you've obviously gone through a few roles in life. I'd love to build a little bit on how you ended up within this role and kind of just the most impactful parts of your journey that led to kind of just gaining the knowledge to step into this role.
Yeah, man, look back at 20 years now. I started my career in the film industry, actually. I was an English literature major. I thought maybe I wanted to be a journalist. Then I decided I really wanted to be an independent film producer. And this was back in like the early 2000s when indie film was really sort of in its heyday. And I spent 5 years working in that business, starting as an executive assistant, working my way up, finally getting onto the set of some great films. But then I decided that I wanted to do something different, that, the entertainment industry is not the easiest industry. And it was right around that time that Google acquired YouTube, and it was all over the news. And I don't know, I was living in New York at the time. I remember being in a Virgin Music store and just like having this idea of like, I wonder if that's kind of the future of entertainment and if I could get in early. And I ended up applying for a role and going to YouTube in 2007 as the film community manager. And that kind of evolved over many years, almost 16 years that I spent at YouTube and Google, into a variety of different marketing roles. Entertainment marketing, brand marketing, product marketing, partner marketing, and eventually, Pinterest came up as an opportunity a couple of years ago. And Pinterest had always been a brand and a product that I absolutely loved. And I saw it as just an exciting opportunity after 16 years at an amazing but very large company to go somewhere a little smaller where I could, hopefully really have sort of outsized impact on what the business was doing. I think throughout it all, for me, from the very beginning of entertainment to now, I think there's, a balance between sort of being a part of culture, whether that was, sort of creator culture at YouTube, whether that was music culture. And I think here at Pinterest today, I feel very fortunate to be in a very culture forward role. I think Pinterest Predicts is a great example of that. Like, just very in tune to sort of what has heat in the consumer world. What do people care about? What are they passionate about? And getting to do work that really builds on that. And then the second piece is just strategy. I never really thought about marketing when I was coming up and in high school, college. It wasn't even sort of a career that was really that familiar to me. But I think there is just so much sort of intellectual work to do in marketing around strategy and just around thinking through problems really critically, trying to find insights to help you solve problems for people, that is just like, from a nerdy perspective, really fun. And so I think, that combination of sort of strategic thinking with like, how do I participate in culture on behalf of this brand, has been something that I've always been really excited to do and really lucky to do. And I think this is a special moment for Pinterest too, where it really is more a part of culture than it's ever been, I think.
I love that. I think I love hearing the stories of people who have, pursued passion and pursued community and culture and helping to build and shape things. So we did a little research, and I'm not sure if this is a true fact. So I want to get the backstory. But were you part of Little Miss Sunshine?
I was. The good old, yeah.
An Academy Award winning film, a part in that. That's amazing. I think it's so cool. So starting from film, and I think this is so cool. And I had like a very, my own career journey was all over the place. And I think it's like you pursue something and I really like this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and make this my career. And then you have these serendipitous things that lead you into the next step of life. And I just kind of love, even if you look at your career trajectory and the different places you've worked, you kind of follow these different opportunities and pursuing the next iteration. And I really think that that's an awesome message for maybe younger marketers or younger people in their career, that it doesn't need to be this like super linear, I'm going to go to film school and I'm going to just become this, or I'm going to have this like perfectly linear path, but being open to opportunities that allow you to explore a new avenue, a new piece of your interests, and coming from film and saying, okay, I'm going to dive into YouTube, this place where so much entertainment and creative, juices are flowing and so many people are creating content. And then seeing Pinterest as another manifestation of way to build culture and way to drive. So I guess my message in that, and I don't know if you echo it, but be open to new opportunities, to explore your passion, to new ways to express your capabilities and build community. I think it's super cool watching your career.
Thank you so much. And I totally agree. And I've had people ask me so many times, what's your 2-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? Never in my life have I had one. Never. I don't have one today. I never have. Like, I just, I don't know. So maybe some people are like that, but I'm not, and I haven't been. And, I think now, sort of 20 years in, looking back, I am really grateful that I never had a specific plan. There were so many just little moments where you make a choice and you don't know where it's going to take you. And, I feel really great about each choice that I made, even, by the way, the terrible ones. I took one role, the role I first took after leaving YouTube and moving over to Google, was leading sort of an upstart product that I think was a little bit before its time. And it was the most challenging experience of my life. I was a new mom. I was there only for 6 months. I was leading all marketing for this product at like a relatively young age. And it was so challenging. There were so many tears. There were so many moments of just sort of like, oh dear, like I really bit off more than I can chew and I'm not prepared for this. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Like, it didn't end well. It was not good. Like, it didn't end well for me, except that I found another role within Google that was amazing. But I wouldn't have traded that for the world. Now that I look back, like, man, did I learn a lot. It was marketing boot camp, like 101. And so I do firmly believe that every choice, even the ones that blow up in your face sometimes, they're there for a reason. There's something for you to learn from it, for sure.
Yeah, it looks like Google Help Ads it's a pretty interesting, like,
How'd
it's really
you know
cool.
what I was talking about? You nailed it there. Okay, go on.
We do a little research around here, but it's super cool premise though. Like,
Yeah.
So just maybe unpacking that, because it's the premise of so maybe explain in your own words. Like, I kind of did a little digging on it, but what was Help Outs, and like,
Yeah.
I think it's super, and I don't mean to drag you through some of these if they're bad memories, but
not at all. No, I'm
in the
saying
same
it's a good
way,
memory now.
Yeah, no, it's like it's so interesting learning from these things. And I think so many people look at Google and they're like, oh my God, it must have been like rainbows and sunshine. You had free lunch every day and you guys were just crushing it. But I don't think people know how many things within Google were really hard and started and failed, and like the trials and tribulations of scaling and growth. So
Absolutely.
Anyway, maybe
even the things that go well are hard, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
People work hard there. Help Outs was basically sort of a marketplace for getting help about anything, ranging from like, I have a question for a doctor, to like, my sink is overflowing and I need to fix it, to like more aspirational things like, I'd like to do yoga, and you could connect with a real human one-to-one over video. This was like 2013, 2012, something like that. So, I think we've seen things like that since, but this was pretty early in that life cycle. And, again, learned a ton, but maybe people weren't as ready to sort of engage with a stranger over camera, in all of those different areas. But again, learned a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things from what you said, stuck with me. I think the concept of just following the direction that is like the next one, as opposed to overthinking, it really does help with the power of yes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when we overthink and we try to predict what's going to happen a year from now based on this decision, one, we're about 99% likely going to be wrong. But two, it takes away the drive for actually doing that next thing in front of us. So I feel like my life changed significantly once I started saying yes to more things. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really funny. My wife says it all the time that I don't turn things down. Like, someone messaged me and asked me if I could partake in a soccer all-star game in New York 2 days before we're supposed to leave for Hawaii. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And my wife is like, are you kidding? She's like, she's shaking me. She's like, don't do it. We're going to holidays, blah, blah. But I'm like, I don't know. I always feel like every opportunity leads to another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you can make sure that you plan it out the right way, you can find success in it. And even if I go and I don't have the time of my life, at least I got to meet these people. I got to participate in this thing. And I know next time if they ask me, I'll say no. So,
yeah. I think that's so true. And I also think, like, listen, there are chapters of life the way that I see it. And there will be moments in life where, like, it's a yes moment. And that, like, you have the energy, you have the freedom, you have the curiosity to be in a yes mindset. And there will be moments in life where, like, you need to set boundaries. Like, you're tired, you need to, like, take care of yourself. And I think that's another, outside of even just the work context, like, I think as much as I can, I try to just take it one day by one day. And it has been that way in my career too, of just sort of like, what's today? Because I do think, when you start trying to like plan it all out forevermore, it gets stifling.
Yeah. When we think about, the lessons that you've learned along the way, a couple things that I wanted to dive in on, I guess, throughout all the parts where you may have failed in some parts, right? The losses, I'd love to just dive in on a few of the lessons that you really feel like you learned that then changed the way that you thought about things, and then, once we can get that squared away, I'd love to touch on the fact that you were a new mother, right? Starting in a role that was very challenging, and how you learned to balance like life and be a leader while all this was going on in your actual, personal life.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, if I think about all my points of failure, more than any, this is going to sound, maybe a little self-helpy, but more than any sort of like, of course, there have been hard skills learned through those moments, or, things to optimize on in the future from a work perspective. But I think more than anything else, I think what you take away from those moments is a lesson about what you are capable of and what you are able to withstand. And I think, in every failure I've had, it was preceded by working really hard to try to get it right. It's not like I just was like, I'm going to phone this in and then it failed. It's like usually quite the opposite. I was like trying to kill myself to get it right and it didn't work. And, sometimes that had harder consequences than others. But I think every single time you go through that and you get up the next day, you learn how strong you are. You learn what you're capable of. And so, you have that happen a number of times over the course of a career. And I think you get to a point where you're like, you're just stronger, honestly. You're more confident. You're more willing to fail because it's not fun, but you're going to survive it. And so, I think that has been my experience. And so I think that sort of confidence and self-compassion is a huge part of also then becoming like a leader and trying to mentor a team and nurture a team and grow a team, is, I think, I hope like, bringing that experience to what you're doing and bringing that, I think, comfort with like who you are and what to bear. So that's kind of how I view it. But yeah, and in terms of being a mom, man, I now have a 12-year-old and 10-year-old boy. All the same things I've said. That is by far my hardest job, by far. That is also a day-by-day situation. And like, man, that has tested me more than anything, but it's also wonderful.
I love that. It is funny trying to, I think back and I look at myself when I was younger and I now see myself having a conversation. I see myself in someone and I'm like, if I were receiving this message 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm so, I got it. And now you've been punched in the face enough times and it's like, I don't have enough, like, I don't care about my ego. I don't care about being right. I just want to get through this. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting. We talk a little at our leadership team about having this blast shield and this kind of idea that the higher you get, the more you just get distilled problems and challenges. And the realist real. And there's quotes from every entrepreneur. It's funny. Sam Altman from OpenAI, he's like, if people told you the truth about starting a company, they would be like, you're insane, because it's just condensed badness and hardest problems and like near death constantly. And so I think it's hard to teach, true resilience in school or impart on a mentee, like, here's what, just being able to deal with getting punched in the face is. And I think parenting often feels in a similar way. I remember we were about to have our first kid and they're saying, hey, get ready. It's going to, I'm like, oh yeah, we got this. And until you're in the moment of not sleeping at all. And for sure, my wife dealt with far more of all of this than I did, just from, because she's a mom, but nothing prepares you like being in it. And I think whether you're an executive or a parent, or you have a life experience, there's nothing more real than actually walking the path and feeling those emotions. And now as you make decisions, those are very real and you can recall them and you don't want to make those same mistakes. And it's really interesting how that shapes who you are. And it's interesting. We also talk about people who have early adversity in life or experience it. They often get this maturing in their ability to deal with adversity and somehow making a positive out of those kind of negative experiences is super valuable. So maybe pivoting to a more uplifting topic. So now we've arrived kind of out of the YouTube, Google experience. We're headed toward Pinterest. And now you're saddled up with this challenge of how do I, continue to mold and shape this brand that has this community, this awesome user base? How do I continue to grow? As a new exec, I'm always curious how people approach like the first 90 days, let's say, like when you walk in and you're like, what were the goals? Like what was the premise of like, hey, we need you to do this? And like, how did you shape that initial experience of crafting your team and building confidence and advocacy and getting to know people, the fire hose of information? Like, what was that like for you?
Gosh, it's a great question. I got to, relive a little bit. I mean, I think this is where my day-to-day guidance comes back into place. I think that I came in, I took each day as it came. Honestly, I don't even think I necessarily came in with like a super, like, here is my exact 30-day plan, 60-day plan, 90-day plan. I think, I started by listening, and really trying to figure out where my team was, how were all of the individuals doing. They had, my role had been open for quite some time by the time I came. And so, there was a lot to sort of really figure out. I also, though, came, you come to a company that's already sort of operating at full speed. And so, we had a brand campaign that needed to launch, I don't know, maybe it was like 4 months after my arrival. We were about to start shooting. And so I also I love being thrown into trial by fire situations, because I do think, that's how you learn. And also, I think in order to build trust with a team, you have got to be in the trenches together, and they need to see you doing the work and trying to figure it out with them. And so in any role, I do want to be thrown into something pretty crazy pretty quickly, because I just think it gets you from 0 to 60 really quickly. And so, I think, yeah, we spent a few months sort of figuring out this brand campaign, and I had a little bit of time to start sort of understanding the team, the individuals who were there, strengths, areas of opportunity. And I would say, if I joined in January, maybe by May, I was starting to feel like, all right, I've got an idea of what we need to do. I think, I'm so lucky. Pinterest is the most fun brand to market. I think, again, it has this very loyal user base that just loves what the brand stands for. There's such a strong kind of narrative around sort of being the most positive place on the internet, and it's well deserved. The company has made a lot of decisions over time to protect that, and to really make sure that people feel safe and inspired on the platform. There's this idea that we talked about in the very beginning, that Pinterest is very much for you, for trying to figure out who you are and what you love. These are all sort of brand positions that, are a joy to sort of amplify and celebrate. You tack that on with a ton of organic growth from Gen Z that was happening sort of right as I got here. It's the most fun demographic to market to. It's just they are culture forward. They're passionate. They're, inspirational. They're curious. So I think, kind of stepping into a role where you have an already strong brand that has, a really sort of beautiful platform to sit on with an audience that is so much fun to market to. I think, within a few months of getting here, it started to become pretty clear, what the opportunities were. And, I also joined at a time when there was a lot of new leadership coming in. Bill Reddy had become CEO already, obviously, and some of my peers in marketing had just joined as well. And so, we kind of had a mandate in a way to really up the game and do something new and kind of create a new era of Pinterest. And, that's been really fun to kind of realize over the last 2 years.
That's amazing. That's a really, really good way to look at how to start off something that, presumably is going to be a pretty difficult task, a pretty tall hill to climb. It seemed like you approached it the right way. And obviously now you are at this point where we are talking about what's really special about Pinterest today. What keeps Pinterest at the cutting edge of society, of technology, of all these really amazing things. So as we dive a bit into Pinterest Predicts, do you mind telling, our audience what Pinterest Predicts is?
I would love to. It's probably my favorite thing. All right. So Pinterest Predicts is our annual end of year, not yet trending report. So you are familiar with a lot of companies that sort of at the end of the year look back and recap what were the big moments, what were the highlights. Pinterest has always been really forward looking. And, we get to do this because 500 million people come to Pinterest every month and they come to plan. They're looking for ideas very specifically, things they want to cook, outfits they're interested in wearing, places they want to travel, bathrooms they want to renovate, whatever it is. And we get a lot of data from that helps us sort of identify what are people planning in the coming months, year, et cetera. And so, it's been going on for a while. It started as really more of a B2B advertiser focused initiative to really help marketers figure out where consumers were going to be in the year ahead. But I think, as we talk about sort of trends and predicting trends, there's so much consumer interest in that. More so year after year, we live in a culture that really is just sort of very excited by, fascinated by trends. And so, it became clear this was also a consumer opportunity and a chance for us to really help consumers to see, what trends are going to be big in culture next year, and how can you figure out which is right for you. And so, again, every December we announce this report. It's trends across a variety of categories: travel, fashion, home decor, beauty, etc. And now we launch these beautiful campaigns alongside them, which I'm happy to talk about as well.
So this is super fun, and I'm always curious on. It's funny because we worked with a lot of brands, and they're always trying to predict like what's the next thing, what's going to land, and it's always this interesting balance between kind of the data and the science of it, and then also the art and the creativity, and having like the pulse on pop culture. And looking at some of the predictions, and I won't spoil all of them, but I'm trying to think about how I come to like this hybrid art and science understanding that like pickles are going to go off in 2025. And I'm like maybe is there like a window into the magic behind Pinterest Predicts and how you guys use that huge data set, use the people, use your own kind of internal staff to try and narrow these into like meaningful predictions that are going to happen.
Totally.
That is also 80%, historically 80% correct. Am I correct?
That is
Am I
right.
right?
That's
which is
correct.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good hit rate. So to your point, it very much is art and science. There's a lot of science to start. So sort of first is, as I mentioned, there's so many billions of searches on Pinterest every month. And so we can look at sort of start by getting sort of finding patterns in the search data. And actually this year there was a lot that the team did around visual search too, to identify even like visual patterns in pins that were being engaged with on the platform. Then there's like a machine learning piece to the methodology where we are able to start sort of collecting searches into different kind of trend clusters. And then there is some art to that. So, there is a week where a number of people across the company, led by our insights team, come together in a room and start looking at those clusters of trends and really trying to kind of figure out what do we really think is going to have the sort of predictive capabilities. And there's also a period of working with external partners to make sure that the final list we're putting together is inclusive and has good sort of global representation as well. As I mentioned, like we're looking to kind of balance, fashion trends and home decor trends and travel trends, et cetera. And then the sort of last step is around kind of gut checking the growth potential and using various predictive analytics and platform engagement signals to make sure that there is staying power to these trends. And so it is, to your point, very much art and science. And then once we have the trends, I think, if you've seen the report, if you've seen the campaign around it, it's pretty special in terms of just sort of the visual aesthetics of it, the naming of the trend. So much work goes into just that pickle fix name, or moto boho or primary play, like everything, is really detailed. And then we just have an incredible creative team who brings these trends to life visually in such just a gorgeous, fun, fresh way. And so between the art and the science, I think it really is such a special look forward.
It's so funny to think about being in that room and some data scientist walks in and goes, guys, this is what I just found. You're going to laugh at me, but pickles is what we're going with. And it's funny. So we actually just came out with a feature. So later we schedule content in the future across all the different platforms, Pinterest included. And we have a really interesting perspective because we see content before it hits the networks and the sites.
Yeah.
And we came up with this concept called future trends. And we're trying to use post data in the future to predict. And it was funny because I feel like a weird resonance of like, we pulled the data and like candle making was popping off. And we were like, we can't go to a client in a pitch them future trends and be like, candle making is what's hot. And lo and behold, candle making popped off like in the next 2 weeks. And it's, we're not trying to predict 25 trends and primary colors and castle core and all this, but it was like this interesting, like aligned moment where you go, this is ridiculous. We can't put this out of the world. And so I'm like, I guess you guys have been doing it for a bit now and you have some conviction in the science behind it, but like, are there any predictions where you were on the fence and you're like, we can't include this, it's too out there? Like, what was one that was like particularly controversial in the team?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know if I can think of any that are particularly controversial. I think what's interesting is that you kind of just never, again, we have confidence in the science behind this, but you don't actually know for sure which ones are going to hit that 80% and which ones are not. So, looking back to last year, we had one called Give a Scrap, which was all about upcycling, which, like, given Gen Z's love for thrifting, thought, this makes sense. This is going to be something. Didn't really stick. That was not one of our wins. We had one called Eclectic Grandpa, which you might have been like, I'm sorry, what? But it was just like this kind of like grandpa chic fashion trend. And that one has like hit big time. I got to find the data point for you, but I want to say it's like something like 127% up year over year since we called that one. I think this year, we'll see. You mentioned Castle Core. That has definitely, which I don't know if I would have said, like, I think it's going to be Castle Core this year, guys. But that has definitely, from our social data and press coverage, that's the one that has had the most pickup. So it's always really interesting, actually, just to see, like, what does come of this.
Yeah, and obviously you have a strategic way to make sure that it's wrapped into societal approach, organizational approach, and a creator approach as well. So I'd love to touch on the creator aspect of it. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the influencer campaign with Pinterest Predicts?
No, I love it. Absolutely. So I should probably say too, we did this really new thing this year called Trend Drops, and that's a big piece of what we're working on with influencers. So we decided, listen, Pinterest is all about figuring out what's right for you. So let's let people try on the trends before they're everywhere. And that really was sort of the creative platform for what we did this year. And so we decided to do these 24 trend drops. They've been happening all week. Tomorrow's the last day, where basically you could try on the trend. You could win an opportunity to try on the trend in some way. So, Castle Core, we created with a designer like a special MetaQuest headset that's all sort of chain mail, unique design. For primary play, we have a custom stand-up piano hand-painted by a street artist. Primary play is a home decor trend about kind of leaning into like childlike home decor. Sea Witchery, which is this sort of makeup beauty trend around kind of a siren look. We have people who are getting custom manicures from celebrity nail artists that bring the trend to life. We did something for Peak Travel, which is all about the mountains, with Marriott Bonvoy, where you can win actually a stay in a mountainous destination and a whole bunch of stuff to go with it. And so every day this week, people have been able to first come, first serve, limited edition, claim these drops. And we've worked with influencers to kind of take a trend, interpret it themselves, and then help promote the trend drop in turn. And so, our really exciting addition to the mix this year was we worked with Wisdom K, who Vogue has called the best dressed man on TikTok. He's brilliant. He's so creative. Like, the way that he can style an outfit is just insane. And so we really give him free rein to just pick 5 trends that speak to you and give people an idea of how they can style it the way that you would. And he did an amazing job. And then, of course, that also sort of promotes going to Pinterest and claiming a drop so you can try it on yourself.
I love the creativity of the campaign and all the different ways it manifests. It's funny because Wisdom K stuff is amazing. I don't know. You guys got to go check out. I've had like 8 conversations about his content because it's so unique and cool. It's like all these different styled high fashion, and the content is super unique. Like, he did styling the fonts, and it's like Times New Roman and Helvetica and Comic Sans, and it just, you're like, that's it. That's Times New Roman. That's it. And like, he did like an Olympics post where he did like really cool high fashion representations of all the different countries, and it's just super cool. I love when a creator is able to do, have this unique ability to speak to people, because it's more than fashion to me. It's like there's some weird human connection in the way that he's picking out clothes that it's like, yes, that is exactly what you're saying it is, and I have no idea why.
Totally.
But really cool way.
And he does it with, it's not always a fashion trend, to your point. Like, he did one for Terra Futura, which is really about sort of sustainable living, but he turns that into like a fashion vibe that is just, you're like, yes, of course, that's exactly what it is. So very cool.
I'm just excited to see Kwame get out there in some castle core and start pushing pickles in 25. He's like, I'm going to jump on the trend. I got it, guys.
You should.
No, hear me out. So 2025, one of my big goals is to be more at the forefront of like fashion and posting more fashion oriented things. I just did a collaboration that actually dropped on Tuesday where I did a lot more like, get ready with me, like this is what I wore, blah, blah, blah. So just look out for me, Wisdom K. I'm coming for you, buddy. Yeah, right. I'm saying 2026, Pinterest predicts, creator is going to be Kwame.
I love it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But with that being said, so we like to have, questions submitted sometimes. And this question was actually submitted by Chantal, who's on our social team, because we reached out to our audience and got some feedback from them. So the question is, are there any examples of a creator and brand partnerships with Pinterest that everyone can learn from? Something that you thought, wow, we really nailed this.
Yeah, sure. I would probably, there's a few, but I would probably go with our Coachella activation this year, which involved both, a brand in that it was Coachella, the music festival, and a lot of influencers who were a key part of the campaign. And I think, what took us to Coachella was data and really clear insights. We saw that, every year come January, there would be the announcement of the Coachella lineup, and then you would start to see spikes in search queries on Pinterest of people searching for Coachella outfit ideas, specific artist outfit ideas, beauty ideas, etc. And so we had a really strong sense. We also had data that like 1 in 4 weekly pinners go to music festivals. And we had a really good sense that like our audience cares about being in this place and they use Pinterest to plan for it. And it makes sense for us to show up there, again, especially because of our Gen Z audience. And so last year was the first year we were there. We're going to be there again this year. And, I think given, again, like we started from a place of real sort of data and insight about our audience and their interests. And then we built an activation that I think, similar to what we're talking about with Predicts, is very much about Pinterest's ability to help you figure out what's right for you. And so what we did was we identified what we thought, again, some of the big trends were going to be for Coachella. And we used the same process again of sort of, not as in depth at all as Pinterest Predicts, which is massive, but still being able to kind of look at signals on platform to see what do we think the fashion beauty trends for this year's Coachella are going to be. And then, we celebrated those trends and we figured out ways to help you figure out which of those was right for you. That happened on platform during the planning phase. So we were dropping boards, our own boards, celebrity stylist boards, et cetera, with ideas of how to style those trends for Coachella. And then when you got to the festival, we had the manifest station, clever, I think, where people could come and they could explore those trends themselves. And we had stylists on hand to actually help people bring them to life in a way that felt right for them. So that was everything from sort of like face lace and gems and bows and, different accessories that you could put on your outfit, your shoes, et cetera. And people could, again, just sort of explore Pinterest for ideas, figure out what was right for them, and then have someone actually like make it happen for them. And people left that space just like ecstatic and feeling really awesome about their festival look. So I do think like that was a win in terms of strong insight, giving people what they wanted. And then I think bringing it to life in real life in a way that was just super fun for people. And, again, we had a lot of creators involved who helped, again, prior to the festival, giving people ideas for how to style those trends, and then being there on site to kind of be in the space, capture content in the space, et cetera.
I love that. It's super cool, the partnership with Chloe and Chanel and all that at Coachella. I was going to rattle off some stats just because I think our listeners maybe don't appreciate some of the gravity of how much you guys are able to either predict and or affect. So from Coachella, Lana Del Rey core was up 300%. 2014 core up 1,240%. Fairy core outfits was 2,200% up, and dark feminine core was up 160%. Super, and it's so niche, and like it's clear that Pinterest had an impact on the event, on all of these various topics, and just a super cool way to activate and get people involved. Like whether you're a creator, whether you're someone participating in Coachella, getting to experience these different trends, these different stylists and creators, and experience Pinterest ultimately and what you are and what you're trying to become. So I'm a data nerd, and so I love the way you approach this kind of art, science, stats, experiential. The manifestation is super fun play on words and just being in. You wouldn't necessarily expect Pinterest to be at Coachella if you didn't kind of keep up with the brand. So I love the way that you guys are taking these designers who are avid pinners and then bringing them and kind of merging all of it together into this experiential thing. So I think it's maybe inspiration for some older brands, some brands who have a established reputation, to get out there and find these intersections of culture and society and kind of be more willing to take some risks. I think.
Yep, totally.
It's pretty cool.
There was also this insight we had that people, like music festivals are sort of a safe space for people to be someone they're not in their everyday life. And we poured through feedback from focus groups that we did in advance of Coachella and kept seeing that come up. Like, this is a place where I'm with my people. I feel safe to be like the most, outlandish version of who I am that I would not be comfortable with in my day to day. And so I think that too, of like, there's a real human desire there that we could tap into, alongside our data about the trends. And that was really, it was like in our manifestation, the messaging everywhere was really about like being the most you version of you that you could possibly be. And so I just add that as like another thing for older brands looking to shake it up is, again, it's just like, what is that core, human human need as well.
As we get close to wrapping this up, I'd love to tie together all, the Pinterest predicts aspect of it, but also you and your experience. As this year comes up, you're very well versed with what's about to come up. Do you have any personal Pinterest predicts favorites that you are looking forward to see come through?
Yes. Okay. So there are so many that I love, but for me, it's Moto Boho is one of mine. So this is sort of like the mix of, like motorcycle vibes. It's a fashion trend and, lace, ruffles, bohemian wear. It's like, I think about like Kate Moss when she first started, going, like I can think of a million, just since we're on the topic of music festivals, photos of her at Glastonbury and all these places in this very like Moto Boho look. And so I'm very excited for that one. I love it personally, but also as we look to Coachella this coming year, I feel like that's going to be a place to really embrace that. And then the Sea Witchery one, I love. I highly encourage, if you go to the Pinterest Predicts profile on Pinterest, you will see all of these trends curated. We have a board for every trend, many boards actually, for trends, and you can kind of see both like the artistic vision that we created for the trend, and then all the different ways to actually sort of shop that trend and bring that trend to life. And Sea Witchery, when you see it, like, I just think it's the most visually beautiful thing. I don't even know how to describe it other than like, it's just this like, pearlescent, underwater vibe. And it can be through makeup, it can be through jewelry, accessories, etc., hair, and I love it. So I have starfish on my nails right now because I'm just so into it. So those are my two favorites. I think they will be big. I love that Castle Core is hitting though, because I do think it's a bold trend it spans home, it spans fashion, and it's got good edge to it. So I'm excited that one's taking off too.
I love it. Super, super interesting. And, one thing that I think I take back, and we talk about it a lot, is I think across the internet and social, Pinterest, however we want to classify that in the realm, it just highlights the uniqueness and kind of all the different representations of people in society and their pursuits and their passions, and highlighting that with the internet, with all this exposure to all these different looks and interests, that there's this kind of new age of discovery and self-expression that wasn't really possible. And everyone kind of looked the same in their same outfits. And I love that because these looks are not the same. They're so different. And I think what's really, really encouraging is that people can choose to express themselves in so many different ways and have it be cool and have it be trending. And I think that there's like creators that I follow on YouTube who make like dioramas, and I don't care at all about that, but it's so cool and they're so passionate. And like now that Castle Core is coming around, it's like they've been doing it for 10 years and suddenly the world is like catching up and seeing how cool this thing that they've been passionate about is. And so I just think the trends, it's an interesting way to spotlight people in society and different passions and different looks, and not just have it all be the same and not have it all be bland and boring. And sports are awesome, but sometimes we need to break out and away from some of this, the standard. Okay, we're going to do the same thing every day, 9 to 5. We're going to be football fans. We're going to be, whatever, middle class Americans. It's like, how can we spice up life? How can we have some unique interests? And I'm going to catch hate by all those people who love sports, but I love sports too. But there's more to life. You can also love cherry coated and go watch a football game. So
absolutely. Also, look at how athletes show up at games now. Like 100%. They got a full look and vibe going, right? They love fashion too. So, it's all intermingled.
Yeah, no, I love how it all comes together. And, I think when it comes to combining all those things, I have one celebrity basketball game per year, and I look forward to that game so much because I get to get decked out, and there's a cameraman that follows me all the way through the tunnel, and it makes me so happy because I get to have one tunnel fit day.
That's right. Totally. Love the tunnel fit. Want to do more there for sure. But I think there's also there is just something joyful maybe about all of this. And I do think that's where Pinterest is it's how am I making the most of my life? I want to have my own, entrance tunnel, and I want to show up in the most outrageous way, or I want to show up in a way that feels like me. And, what people are doing on the platform are really sort of just creating that life that they want to make a reality, and manifesting what they want to be true. And, I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, whether that's a lifestyle that stretches throughout the year, or it's maybe just a hyper-focused moment of just
totally
wilding out in a beautiful way at Coachella.
Exactly.
Right? It's whichever way you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, awesome. This has been an amazing conversation and super, super fun. And I think one of the things I walked away with was it's totally possible to be a bigger tech company that deeply cares about their users, deeply cares about their identity and their passions, their pursuits, that pursues work with influencers and brand deals and making money, but does it in a way that you can be really proud of and is net positive for society and accretive to what we're trying to do. And we talk about that a lot. How do we, through being in this space, be the best representation of what it can be? Great consumer experiences, great self-expression, a living for creators and a way for them to express themselves, brands growing in new ways and connecting with audiences, and a non-terrible consumer experience. So I'm glad I'm thrilled what you all are doing and how you're moving the space forward. And it's something we could all learn from and try to model after. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Excited to see these trends. I'm gonna call you when I see my first castle core out in the wild, and we can bond over it. But amazing conversation.
Thank you both so much for having me.
All right. So until next time, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Sarah, for being with us. Thank you, Scott, for being an amazing co-host. Life is great. 2025 is going to be a fantastic year. Everyone have a great week. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.